attic up here, up into the top floor, but of course there's a little bit of work going on, so it's probably safer to be here.
Yeah.
I was delighted when Ross told me that we were bringing this production to the Whale to Greystones. The picture of Dorian Gray, it's something you've lived with for quite a while. I think it'd be fair to say you've sort of know it pretty well. And so for Joe and Joanna's six pack, is there a certain kind of, because it's been adapted quite a bit, I don't know if there's a certain kind of a way you've approached it with your two co-stars?
Well, I mean, there have been lots of films of it. There was an adaptation at the Abbey a few years ago. What we've done with this, we've adapted it just for 3 actors. It's myself, Michael James Ford, and Michael Wilde. And what we've done is just take Oscar Wilde's words. We haven't created scenes that weren't there. We haven't even used words that weren't there, except for 1 or 2 little filler-in things.
Right.
So all we've done in adapting it is actually cut the stuff from the book that we don't need. And we do it all with 3 actors.
That idea of the picture in the attic, it kind of resonates, even though you're talking about 1890, this first appeared in the magazine. It was a novel in 1891, and that was the first time. I know that they said about 7 different versions between the censorship that the magazine made, and then Oscar himself was re-editing. And
that's right.
And then there was an uncensored version in 2011. Harvard, released all the notes and all the original.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether there's a definitive, or whether it's like Shakespeare and like so many. It sort of has a life of its own, that it evolves and.
Well, I'm not a textual scholar.
Right.
I'm an actor. We took the standard version because we did this originally 7 years ago. My little daughter, who's now in first class, wasn't born when we started working on this and started performing it. So, what was your question? I don't know what text is the best, but certainly at the time it was pretty scandalous because there's no mention, for example, of homosexuality in the book.
Right.
But for those in the know, you could read things in a certain way. Sure. I mean, there's no sense of that, no explicit sense of that in our production, and it's not what it's particularly interested in. We're interested in telling this basically very moral, gothic, fairy story about the beautiful young man, Dorian, who makes a wish, and his wish comes true. His wish is that he can stay forever as he is, young and beautiful, and the picture that's just been painted of him will grow old.
It's like the reverse of Facebook, where people have a profile picture that never goes old, and yet they themselves, when you actually meet them, you think, holy crap, is that you?
Exactly.
Your profile picture's a lot different. But we do live in a time when we always have, I guess, the narcissistic kind of notion of just wanting to be beautiful and young, and so it always, I always think with works like this, they just always resonate. There's not that was an era when they needed to battle those ideas. It's always there.
Not particularly. I mean, the idea of staying young is huge. I mean, I'm 7 years older than when I started doing this, and I have a long speech about youth and how wonderful youth is, and believe me, every time I give that speech, it touches me more, because I realise when I talk about your limbs failing and your senses rotting and degenerating into a hideous puppet, I realise how true it all is.
Well, Michael Wilde, of course, has the toughest role, where he's got to do that, that sort of Keanu Reeves ageless kind of look, where you you represent almost an ideal of staying young. I don't know whether that's a struggle or the man is blessed with.
Well, he's a beautiful looking young man, and for anybody who's coming to see it, let me tell you, there are references to his curly hair. It's all his. It's naturally curly. He's still able to play this part.
I saw him leaving his hair into the dry cleaners yesterday. I'm not sure. But there is that belief too with great work, whether from Oscar Wilde, Shakespeare, even the Beatles and all that it lends itself to interpretation. It lends itself to, I won't say reinvention, but people can take it on and hopefully bring something of themselves to it.
Absolutely, but I think what we're trying to do in this version is not particularly to reinterpret. We want to tell the story as best we can using his words. We're setting it in the times in which it was written, but as with any kind of, as I say, partly fairy story, it's not a children's fairy story, but it has those elements to it. Then yes, absolutely, there's always room for reinvention and understanding it yourself. And I suppose I think our feeling is that if we can do it straight, then and tell it well, then the audience, it's in their imaginations that the retelling goes on and the re-understanding.
Sure. Well, a great art sort of leaves the story halfway there. You kind of walk the rest of the way. You bring your own baggage, your own interpretations, and that. But that sense too that there is a I don't know if I think we can fairly say this is a classic. But that sense for an actor or anyone taking on what is a well produced, over the years. There's, as you say, there's lots of films and lots of theatre productions. Is that daunting? Is that a delightful challenge? Is it sort of we're stepping into many other people's shoes here?
It's written by Oscar Wilde. Right. It means there are wonderful lines in it. It's all lovely to speak, and there's some fantastic, funny lines, as you would expect. So daunting, absolutely not. A delight to be doing that, to be honest.
We should, just to wrap up, I think we should try and do some sort of cross promotion with Mrs. Robinson's. There's a sort of reverse aging attempts going on in there every night, so there's a kind of a nice we could just do some sort of cross self-promotion. I don't know, there's some way of connecting to but there is that eternal youth, I think, that we're all chasing. But the date now is October
the 7th. Saturday, October the 7th.
Yeah, well, we'll have all the links above the interview here, and links to the Whale, but also to your own kind of work and all that. And nice. I'm so glad that we have a theatre that will bring, all sorts of art, but certainly the classics.
I am thrilled. I'm really delighted because this is my hometown. It's a 5-minute walk to the theatre for me. So I've done it. We've been doing this all over the country, and we've done it in the south of France. Plans to tour England, but to do it in my own backyard is a real pleasure.
Another native son, Phelim Drew, was here with the adaptation of George Orwell's Dead Out in Paris and London.
Great show.
I don't know if his children have sat him down to talk about his career choices yet. Has your child ever sat down and said, I need to talk to you about this acting thing?
No, they'll soon twig though.
Right.
And then I was thinking about whether they were old enough to actually come and see this time round, but right. I think still not. They just wonder what on earth Daddy was doing with that silly coat and a funny hat and a funny voice.
Call out when they ask you on stage. Nicely done.